a little bit of a weekend break, which I feel like went just as fast, if not faster, than the last week went because it kind of moved. Maybe that's why I'm so late because I just still want to hang out for the weekend a little bit longer. I'm glad you guys have shown up. I mean, I'm glad I showed up finally. Only like 3, 4 minutes late, bro. Calm down. It's okay. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not okay. I got TDR to do right after this, and I'm always pressed on time on a Monday because of these things. So therefore, what I decided to do was, like over plan again, do all that stuff. Maybe I need to rethink this whole strategy of not doing 3 topics and going on to 4 like I feel like I need to do. Because guess how many I have today? I've got 5 of them. It's okay. One day I'll learn, or maybe I won't, and I'll keep doing this to myself. Either way, let's go ahead and get started. Glad you guys are all here. Glad you showed up, all the early folks. You guys are, I love you. I love you. You can talk all the trash. I'll look for it later. And as a matter of fact, I expect it. Let's get started on something a little bit different. I know I go to a lot of the madness of this administration. I go to all the corruption. I go to all of the fascism. I go to all the murder. I go to all of the breaking of the Constitution, all these things that these guys do. But, every once in a while, there's some drama that happens amongst conservatives, and specifically when it targets a MAGA conservative who we all know is fake and is carrying the water and pushing all this division, hatred, and murder here in our country. I like to see a little bit of battles back and forth. You don't have to like either one of the folks in this situation, but I did enjoy what it is that's happening and how it just might continue to go down. Here's one bad actor talking about another bad actor. I mean, sometimes it happens. Maybe you guys recognize this guy.
One of the most distinctive things about the right wing in this country is its homosexual overtones. Benny Johnson posts pictures of his children every 2 days. It's weird. And everybody knows what went on with Benny Johnson in those lobbies and in those hotel rooms at SAS. Everybody knows.
I don't. No.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Men, younger men, not underage. At least I don't know that. His wife was crying drunk in the lobby 3 SASs in a row about how her husband was upstairs with boys.
Come on.
But go ask her.
Come on.
Go ask her.
Come on, Milo.
Go ask her.
Milo, aren't you ever scared of getting sued? You say something crazy. I'm sitting here like I am humbled by the lore and your ability.
The audacity.
There's no teapots in this room right now to express how I feel.
George, I have said these things about people for 20 years and never once in my career been sued. I've issued 3 corrections in my entire journalistic career because I get my facts right. And people know that they do not want to go through discovery.
Actually, I want to say this.
I've never been sued for anything I've ever said about anyone.
The one thing I need to say this. I need to say this.
Because I'm right.
The most terrifying thing about Milo.
There's that name you haven't heard in a while. Milo Yiannopoulos. I never really said his name right, but that right-wing, severe conservative provocateur, he gets into it with everyone. And now apparently lately it's Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson, that conservative talker that was also invited to be in the press pool at one point and asked ridiculous questions, pushed all kinds of madness, talks a lot at these Turning Point USA events. So in case you guys don't, let me just refresh your minds on who Benny Johnson is and maybe a specific example of when he's talking on stage and what he likes to push, which flies right in the face. So what it is that now Milo Yiannopoulos is saying about him. Here's Benny Johnson, because Milo says that he's gay and closeted and has all these hateful things to say about other folks. We've seen this story before. Here he is at a TPUSA event a couple of years ago.
The time game is over.
That's the man that Milo is critiquing for his potential, gayness. So that's where we are now. These are the kinds of accusations that are lobbed. These are the things that get people so upset. But again, I just want to point out maybe the reason why he's saying this, maybe the reason why this will be such a scandal, because by the way, who cares if you're gay? This is something that, you know, conservatives like to run on about and divide people over and say that people don't deserve any rights behind as well. So that's one of the main reasons. Also, this is Benny Johnson's brand, a part of it.
Listen to this. Listen to this. Went viral in my feed. This lib woman posting about how she can't find, she wants a really big, strong man who provides for her, who's an alpha, but there's just one problem.
Do you want to know one of the saddest realizations I recently had? Was that as a liberal woman, it is really hard to find a man who is willing to play the more traditional masculine role in the relationship in today's day and age, who is not a conservative. A man who wants to pay on the first date, who wants to open your door, who has that want and desire to take care of you and to provide, who is not a conservative. And obviously, as a liberal woman, I do want to be respected for my independence. And I do want to have my own autonomy in the relationship and not be confined or conform to the traditional female homemaker, childbearing role. And most of the men that I've dated who do have that more natural provider masculinity about them are normally conservative. So I don't really know what to do because I don't want to compromise my morals and values just to find a man. But am I asking to have my cake and eat it too?
Well, you can learn how to bake a cake first. If you want a cake, you need it too. So, have you been a great woman? There ain't nothing wrong with being a trad wife. Being a trad wife's based. Men love this.
So there's the theme. That's who he is. Being a trad wife is based. I'm gonna come out and dance. Whatever he was doing. So that's where the basis for this, where this could be a problem for Benny Johnson, all the accusations being lobbed at him by Indianapolis. That's just an aspect. Like I said, other disdainful things about Benny Johnson is his direct, rabid hatred and racism. You know, talking about how he went to clean out DC. Don't forget those moments. He also said that we need to bulldoze certain communities. That the reason DC is overrun by all this crime is because during the civil rights era, they bust in all of these protesters and thugs and started riots, you know, for civil rights. And that's the problem with DC. He's a piece of shit, in case you guys don't know that. So it's dueling pieces of shit. You know, it's one of those things that sometimes happens. But Benny's wife then responded, because this started getting heated. This is very important to them. These types of accusations are very serious. I knew nothing about Benny Johnson's wife, but she jumped into the fray. I suppose people know who she is. But she was talking about something with the medical community because apparently she's a nurse. It was something completely unrelated. One person responded because they had seen this thing from Milo and said, "Hi, off subject, but Milo is on here totally destroying you and Benny now on here. It's not good. It's BS what he's doing." She responds and says, "He needs prayer and a good attorney." Uh-oh. Attorneys are now being named in this whole thing. Matter of fact, after she said that, I believe only several hours later, Benny Johnson himself says, "I'll take that baton, wifey." Responds further and says, "I'm duty bound to take action to protect my family against those who maliciously defame and attack us. More to come on that soon. Pray for healing for some really sick and delusional people. Jesus is about redemption. The legal system is about justice. Happy Sunday." Strong words there from Benny Johnson, but never really specifically naming Milo as who it is that he's coming for these potential legal actions for defamation of character for being gay. Again, accusation. We've seen it swirled on all the time. We see things like this happen. Many times they just kind of fade away. As a matter of fact, it made me remember that whole thing going down with the potential Grinder account for Mike Johnson. It kind of blew up. The guy that was pushing it over on TikTok kind of went away. I got to go look up and see how that guy's doing and see how those developments potentially have come, or maybe they found a way to bury any more of those allegations coming forward. So anyways, Benny Johnson also added on to that. They're piggybacking. They're having this tag team, and they said more to come on that soon, per se. That is, those potential lawsuits of an unnamed person. It's assuming it's Milo. So here's the back end of this. Here's the kicker behind this whole thing. Milo keeps saying that he never gets sued. He keeps saying things like, I've got the background. I'm ready for discovery if he has some kind of lawsuit against me. Therefore, we better look into all this evidence and then see if it's true or not. That's always the crux of these types of things. After someone says a lot up front and in public, and then maybe the judicial system goes to work and we find out the details behind it, they may not want that. That's part of what this long thread that this post here on X that I won't read all of, I promise. But it is from Milo in response to this whole thing. He says, dear free speech warrior Benny, dear Kate, I know more about defamation than any lawyer will hire. Benny's a public figure. Malice is a non-starter. I have receipts. And the truth is a total defense against any claim of defamation or libel. Do you want to lose a defamation case to Milo Yiannopoulos of all people? He puts in all capitals about whether or not you're gay. Do you want to even fight that one? The people who have poured money into making you a big deal are about to lose their entire investment. He also says, I know more about marriage than you do. And I have evidence and I have witnesses. I know who to subpoena. I know what questions to ask about nocturnal liaisons, dangerouses with chaps in assless chaps, and about being caught in flagrant delito, whatever he's speaking other words, at conferences attended by students, some of which may have been under 18. I guess we'll find out. Well, this is one of those situations. It's a big, quick blow up in front of people's faces. There's folks that are finding sides and hating one guy for another. And all this just becomes a bit of an attention grab. But at the end of the day, I would still be waiting for that lawsuit and what actually comes out of it next. Because as they pointed out, they would have to then put forward some kind of evidence. This guy claims he's got receipts. He claims he's got witnesses. He claims he's got all kinds of stuff because he knows more about defamation and libel than anyone else does. It's just a little bit of Monday starter. I want to put that all into perspective for all the devastation that's happening in this country, all the hatred that's being spewed by people like the President of the United States and one of his little foot soldiers in Benny Johnson that's engaging in these types of fights as the economy is destroyed, as Christmas and holiday times are coming and people are desperate for finding ways around just surviving through this whole thing, as we're about to start more wars, as Pete Hegseth is still killing more people in the Caribbean, as so many destructive and embarrassing things are happening in this country with a leadership group that looks like this. They're going to have fights over who the fuck is gay. I just want to give you guys a little bit of perspective of who it is that and who supporters are of the people that are running this country. It's a clown show. It's embarrassing, but here we are. But I'm still willing to see how this all pans out. We'll find Mike Johnson's accuser later, and we'll get back to that another time too. Let's move on to real stories. That's madness. I just wanted to start with that. Quick little hitter, okay? Sorry. Let's get started on this next thing. As I did point out, though, Pete Hegseth and this Department of War is continuing their onslaught, continuing their attacks on people in the Caribbean. I'm gonna get to that in a second, but the problem is as they continue their onslaughts and their attacks and potential more war crimes, what's happening is that he's still trying to fight his way through that first one that we haven't forgotten about yet. This is Pete Hegseth and his wife in the streets being confronted.
Hey, you treasonous traitor! Hey, you murderer! You're gonna learn how to do a pull-up in prison! You're gonna learn how to do a pull-up in prison, you traitorous dog! You cowardly, treasonous murderer! Shame on you, you traitor! Shame on you, you coward! Traitor! You shitbag! You can't even do a pull-up, you drunk! Hey, you murderer!
It's the kind of thing that I would expect eventually to happen. It's why these folks probably don't want to step out in the streets. They should be heckled. They should be confronted. They should be told who they are by the American citizens every time they step out because they demean us. They attack us. They hate this country. Why would you not respond that way? It's kind of like natural. So Peter Hegseth has to smile as people stand out wherever he was and scream about how much of a traitor, murderer, war criminal he is. There's a really good way to clear that up. Have your name be nice and cleansed, step out in the streets and have people celebrate you. Not say things like this when someone's asking you questions about those attacks and whether or not we're going to see that next video of that attack, the second strike of that attack that they say was all on the up and up.
problem. Not hopefully, it will make the American people safer in the process.
So, Mr. Secretary, you will be releasing that full video.
We are reviewing it right now.
Is that a yes or no?
That is, the most important thing to me are the ongoing operations in the Caribbean with our folks that use bespoke capabilities, techniques, procedures in the process. I'm way more interested in protecting that than anything else. So reviewing the process and we'll see. Problem. Not hopefully, it will make the American people safer in the process.
So, Mr. Secretary, you will be.
So Pete Hegseth had quite a bit of a stumble there when asked whether or not he's going to release that video of that second strike. You know, the one that everyone's talking about, the one that some members of the House and the Senate got a glance at and be giving us their opinions about what it was. You know, Tom Cotton was one of the folks who said nothing was wrong. But for some reason, Pete Hegseth has an issue. As you saw there, they're going to review whether or not they're going to let us see that great video. They've shown us every other video. They've shown us videos for a few months now about these murders that they've been doing, as if that's a good thing. But this particular one they have to review. I wonder why. Maybe they don't want us to see what's in it, and we can come to our own conclusions about what it is that was in it. He was still talking and didn't make it any better.
And did you have a plan to deal with survivors?
There was protocol for dealing with survivors, but in that, and frankly, there was 10 strikes later, there was a semi-submersible that I think folks here, meaning a submarine. You don't go fishing on a submarine full of drugs. And in that particular case, the first strike didn't take it out. And a couple guys jumped off and swam, from what I understand, a ways away. When we struck the submarine a second time, it sunk. And then you had two people that you had to go get. And we had the ability to go get them. We gave them back to their host countries. That's a story that's already been out in the public. So we didn't change our protocol. It was just a different circumstance. So what people think is cavalier or cowboy about it is the exact opposite. These are the most professional Americans going through specific processes about what they can and cannot do, understanding all the authorities, all the laws of war, all the capabilities, and applying it to deter our adversaries. And by the way, there aren't many people getting in boats right now running drugs, which is the whole point. We want to stop the poisoning of the American people. The catch and release program of the pat them on the head and release them so they can go back to the fight didn't work in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's not going to work in the Caribbean. So we're putting them at the bottom of the Caribbean, which forces them to change the way they operate and hopefully makes the American people safer in the problem. Not hopefully, it will make the American people safer in the process.
So, Mr. Secretary, you.
So apparently, in bringing up a different case with a submarine that they went and attacked, where they then, again, only according to what this guy is saying, we went through the correct protocols when folks were injured. Maybe they were floating in the water. Who knows, whatever scenario that he's talking about, because he makes things up. In that case, they did the right thing. Therefore, in the cases where we did the wrong thing, by the way, even blowing these folks up in the first place was the wrong thing. But in their alternate reality, in other cases, when they did the right thing, and then continued killing people afterwards, that was a one-off? What's the difference? Why is that one okay to kill people, and in the case of the submarine, it's not? He just brings up other things to try and deflect from the fact that he's continued to get cornered in these bad rotation of lies. I feel like Representative Adam Smith, Democrat, who got a chance to see some of this stuff, who pointed out what it is that he saw, he has a pretty good grasp on the reasons why Pete Hegseth is a little dodgy on whether or not he wants to show folks that other half of that video where they struck them the second time. I believe it was like 42 minutes after the original strike. Adam Smith had a better way of putting it, though.
On the release of the video, President Trump has said he's fine with having it released, but Secretary Hegseth also said yesterday that's still being reviewed, and he raised the possibility that they can't release it because they don't want to compromise sources and methods.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, how many videos have they released to date? I'm not sure. It's like 15 or 20. They've showed the strike. It's not very hard to make sure that nothing in that video, shows anything. If they showed us just the portion that we saw of those two on the boat, it's no different than any of the dozen-plus videos they've already released. I mean, it seems pretty clear they don't want to release this video because they don't want people to see it, because it's very, very difficult to justify. And again, big issue here is President Trump's dragging us into a foreign conflict when we have domestic issues that we're supposed to be paying attention to, that we need to be paying attention to. It's directly contrary to the campaign that President Trump ran. And is this really about drugs, or is it about regime change in Venezuela? Are we about to go to war with Venezuela. The president has alluded to that repeatedly over the course of the last several weeks, couple months now. And that, too, I think would be very, very bad for the national security interests of our country.
They just don't want people to see it. I think it's pretty clear. I mean, listen, when these guys are bad at lying and they get asked multiple questions, because people are, this is the thing. Journalists are finally beginning to ask the follow-up questions. They're finally starting to listen to these folks and realizing, as I've been saying, these guys lie every time. So it's really easy to ask a basic follow-up question like, really? Or when, why, how, what are you talking about? So does that mean, and give them their scenario, this bullshit scenario that they give you, and see if it makes sense when they have to go and defend it immediately right afterwards. They don't expect that. They weren't really used to normal questions being asked, because as more and more questions get asked and as more and more people get revealed, in this case, Admiral Bradley, who they threw under the bus for this whole thing, who was a part of it. So, you know, not too much sympathy for him. As this is all happening, we wouldn't see the more information that comes. We wouldn't hear about the things that Admiral Bradley had to say in these closed door, I guess, revelations about what went down. But CNN was talking about it. It gets worse. Listen to what Admiral Bradley was saying happened.
Breaking news, waving their arms. Sources telling CNN the admiral who formally called for the second strike on the alleged drug boat in the Caribbean told lawmakers that the survivors were waving at something in the air before the second strike, although they say it is unclear whether they were surrendering or asking a U.S. aircraft for help. We are also learning that Admiral Bradley told lawmakers that the boat was going to meet a larger vessel heading to Suriname. Suriname's a small South American country east of Venezuela. And that may matter because U.S. drug enforcement officials tell us that drug trafficking routes via Suriname are primarily destined for European markets, not the United States. Of course, President Trump has explicitly said that this boat was an imminent threat heading to the United States, saying, quote, the strike occurred while the terrorists were heading to the United States.
It just keeps getting worse. So as those detail was pointed out there on CNN, that boat was headed to Suriname, who is a drop-off point, at least I guess a route towards other markets, as they call it, for these illicit and illegal drugs, right? Not America. So again, there's small pieces of information. There's things that piece this whole thing together that give us the indication that they really don't know nor care where these boats are headed, what's on them, and if they are drug boats, what is it they're doing, what the destination is. Because as you go and blow people up randomly in the waters, including fishermen, which we're discovering that's also the fact too, and you're just murdering folks, what you'll see is information coming out about how bad this really is and how they're really flying by just assumptions because they're bloodthirsty. Murderers like these guys don't care about whether or not they're killing people correctly. They just say they're supposed to kill people because they can't wait to blow more people up. And as they have to keep answering questions, things keep coming out. So there was CNN talking about more details of how bad this looks and maybe the reasons why Pete Hegseth still doesn't want to release the second half of that video, even though Donald Trump's dumbass quickly jumped out and said, sure, let's release it. Let's release it really fast. All that came together in this particular NBC story on it as well, too. They got a lot of questions to answer, and they're doing it really badly.
We should note the president himself posted the first part of that strike on social media back then, and just last week said he had no problem releasing video of the second strike. Hegseth is now vowing more airstrikes in the Caribbean, even as he faces growing pressure and is now the focus of congressional investigations. Admiral Frank Bradley, who ordered the follow-up strike, told lawmakers he was given a target list, adding Hegseth told him to destroy the vessel and kill all 11 people on board, and that he was in contact with military lawyers. That's according to two officials and one person familiar with the congressional briefings. Military aircraft overhead, the sources said, spotted the two survivors waving their arms before launching follow-up strikes more than 30 minutes later, killing them and sinking the boat. Bradley says the boat was traveling from Venezuela to Suriname, another country in South America, and was not headed to the U.S., according to an official and a person familiar with the briefing. On Friday, the Coast Guard posted this video appearing to show members firing at a boat, saying it seized thousands of pounds of cocaine.
It just continues. So as we see more questions being asked, we see more actual pushback from journalists and discussions and cornering of Pete Hegseth on this whole thing. The reason why he has so much confidence as he steps forward and lies every day, and then people, dismantle those lies, is because they feel like they don't have any more accountability to this country. Like, these are the traitors that have, tried taking over the country, that are now threatening American citizens, that have been arresting and detaining people and saying, who gives a shit? We get to do what we want. These are the same guys. Because right now, like, this was posted by U.S. Southern Command. It said on December 4th, today's what, December 8th? Today's December 8th. So on December 4th, they say, just last week, at the direction of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, they said the Joint Task Force, here, let me show you. Why did I read it to you? Let me show you. In case you don't believe me. They posted this. There's no sound on this video, so I'm going to tell you what they wrote before I run it. But they said the task force, Southern Spirit, conducted a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel in international waters operated by a designated terrorist organization, designated by Donald Trump. Intelligence confirmed that the vessel was carrying illicit narcotics and transitioning along a known narco trafficking route in the Eastern Pacific. So what their plan here was to show everybody this from December 4th. This is in the middle of this whole debacle and all these questions being asked about these double taps and this random shooting of people, because they figure we'll blow up boats, drug boats, we'll blow up fishing boats, we'll blow up submarines. Who gives a shit? We can do what we want. And then post about it later with this disaster bloodthirst porn that they think really helps their case. So apparently that's the hill they're willing to at this point, they don't even consider they're going to die on that hill. They're looking to thrive on that hill, because what they want you to accept is being a bloodthirsty, murderous country. I don't think it's going to work. They can keep trying, but I don't think it's going to work. And it's a big reason why they don't want people asking Pete Hegseth questions, which brings me to the next aspect of this. You guys remember this same Department of War secretary when he kicked all reputable media members out of the Pentagon because they asked too many questions, because they asked those follow-ups, because they say things like, well, that doesn't make sense. And instead, they've have you guys ever seen who they stuffed in these press briefing rooms? Now that reputable sources, even sources like Fox News, decided not to be a part of this whole thing of carrying the water for this Pentagon. Here's a presidential ad from the Pentagon to show off who it is that's replaced real journalists in these briefings.
Welcome all of you here to the Pentagon briefing room as official new members of the Pentagon Press Corps. This is the beginning of a new era. We look forward to working with you to keep the American people informed and to ensure transparency.
So the Department of War, underneath this president who's all about PR and thinks everything that they put out there with jazzy music and exciting building, pressured drums, makes things suddenly okay. So you got all those incompetent people in the Department of War press briefings now, and because they put out some weird promotional ad, people are supposed to just, start accepting it now. It's weird because Don Bacon, another Republican who's got a couple more instances of speaking out against this president. It started all with Russia, but now he's a little bit he's queasy on Pete Hegseth too. He doesn't like how this whole thing is going on, and even mentioned this problem with these fake ass reporters in the room.
Well, I've been on the record already. After Signalgate, I think I've seen enough. What I really wanted to see was someone take responsibility. What I've seen is what I call just a poor decision making. So, for example, not taking responsibility in Signalgate, but his rules on the media, where now you have a bunch of second-rate journalists operating out of the Pentagon, but all of the Fox and New York Times, Washington Post, they're all outside of the Pentagon. And then we have rules that we have military bases in our districts. They're not allowed to talk to us because of his orders to them not to talk to anybody in Congress unless the actual questions have been vetted through the Pentagon first. So there's a series of decision making here that really bothers me.
It really bothers him. It bothers Don Bacon that this series of decision making where they're kicking real folks out of the room that may ask questions and then sending it to these folks who are willing to just carry the water and regurgitate whatever it is that they tell them. It's a little bit concerning considering we're talking about going to war down in Venezuela, considering he keeps talking about how he's ending wars that, keep fighting in those wars, considering he's disappointed in Zelensky over his refusal to just accept everything that Vladimir Putin wants, who then also said everything Donald Trump is pitching in this proposal to Ukraine is everything I want. But we don't get those real answers because the folks in the room, the folks that have been replaced in the room, this is who Pete Hegseth and whoever this lady is that's running these press briefings. Maybe I should have got a name. Apologies for that. This is the type of thing that they're pushing. Now, this question was about what we were just talking about with this double tap and the potential war crime that Pete Hegseth is pulling off that was originally reported by the Washington Post. So this is like from a week ago, right at the beginning of this, when they were denying that any of it ever happened. Look at this great reporter here.
Does the Department of War plan on pursuing any sort of legal action against the Washington Post? And what consequences will there be for lying to the American people? Because, of course, the implication there was that Pete Hegseth and Admiral Bradley are war criminals. And that was the implication. And that's what a lot of people on social media were saying after the fact. So could you speak to that?
Yeah, it is frankly disgusting that the Washington Post would publish something that is so insanely false. And we've seen this from the mainstream media before, right? Anonymous sources that are being quoted that probably have no idea what's going on. And the Washington Post actually went so far as to falsely attribute a quote to the Secretary of War, that he never said. That is preposterous that they would write that and pass that off as true journalism. Thankfully, the New York Times stepped in and corrected the record and let the American people know that what they were publishing was absolutely fake news. So the Washington Post, I think readership should think twice before reading that outlet again. It is disgraceful that they call themselves journalists. And we told them as such, right? We get press queries like we do from all of you. We told them this story was completely fake news on Thanksgiving evening with a 3-hour deadline, and they still published it anyway. It's disgraceful, but thankfully the American people see through it.
To a room full of fake journalists, she decides to say, and we called them out and said, we don't appreciate fake journalism. The reality has to be flipped in order for them to continue down this same path. So, by the way, I wonder in the next press briefing if that same guy, his name is Wade Searle, by the way, Searle, if he's gonna then ask, yo, is the Pentagon gonna pull back on that threat to sue the Washington Post, considering right after that was all put out, they then admitted that they did have this double tap, when originally they said that was all fake news. At that time, it was all fake news. Isn't it weird how fake news, once the revelations come out and the proof continues to roll out after they've called it fake news? Isn't it weird how suddenly that we just forget that we even said all that stuff, that we move right on and act like we're legitimate people in the first place? Here's that same guy. I'm gonna show you how legitimate all these new reporters in these briefings are. Here's Wade Searle. He says the fake news is out. Life site news is in. So there he is standing at the podium at the Pentagon, the Department of War, as he also tagged there. This is why they're there. This is what gets them jazzed up. This is what the Pentagon and Pete Hegseth's department has put in place. A bunch of idiots like these guys to stand there and promote themselves as if they're badasses, when what they are anti-American traitors who continue to push the same talking points that these guys want them to. It's, almost like fascism or something. This other guy, R.C. Maxwell, he's another one of the new journalists in there. The Pentagon cubicle that used to belong to Dan Lamoth is now mine. Out with the propagandists and the hacks, in with the truth tellers who love America. I feel like truth telling should be one of those things that, doesn't qualify by whether or not you love America. In fact, telling the truth is what would make you love America. And when you follow behind everything these guys tell you to do, I feel like that doesn't really match up. Hey, here's more of these guys. This was literally what they're doing with their days. I can confirm the former Washington Post Pentagon desk is now the fearless media desk. Now they're sitting there chilling at their new cubicles. Don't they have some work to do? I mean, don't they have some questions to no, they're getting fed questions and answers in the way that they should write it, all from the folks that they're in these rooms promoting and saying that they're now being the new journalists behind. Here's one of the more stark ones. Laura effing Loomer's in there. She says the Washington Post and Dan Lamothe, who apparently works at the Washington Post, used to occupy this desk inside the Pentagon press room. Now it's mine. Like, did they all get together? And they all got together and said, yo, let's all take stupid selfies and somehow think this makes us look cool as we sit in cubicles, as we ask very basic questions that are leading them into saying, yeah, we're going to sue the Washington Post for fake news when they're not suing the Washington Post for fake news. I wonder at some point, like, as Don Bacon in there pointed out how he's so frustrated with this whole thing, when are they going to do something? Are you going to join in Democrats and try and start impeaching these guys? Because you're troubled by it. This is the most probably troubling face you'll see in this press briefing rooms. And from that other video where Mr. Wade Searle was asking questions, maybe you saw maybe you saw Matt Gaetz peeking his face into the corner. If not, here's confirmation that he was there too.
Describe the process the administration will use to determine whether or not current members of the Venezuelan military or Venezuelan government have a role in a post-Maduro Venezuela. Describe.
We all know what happened with old Matt Gaetz. He was supposed to be originally the attorney general and got run out of that confirmation from all those revelations about his dealings with 17-year-old girls that he paid for favors. And the favor was not, a cup of sugar from his neighbor. Just saying. These are the folks that are in the room. So I appreciate you, Don Bacon. Maybe we can, start talking about what to do about this now, because you got a murderer's row of idiots in this room, and we know what it is that they're about. If we don't pay attention to it, because there's so many things that distract us, because I'm like a half a week to a week late on that stuff too. It just happens. How close do we pay attention to the people in this room in connection to all these questions that we need answered about what it is they're doing in these Caribbean waters, what it is they're setting up to go and attack Venezuela over, and everything else? That's the plan. As soon as stuff started kicking into higher gear, they needed to expel all the folks who would ask questions. And many of them wouldn't even dig that deep. But these guys really won't. It's almost like a criminal organization running this country. Hey, everyone. I'm going to jump to this next story. I'm kind of motoring today. I started a little bit late. I got TDR in a minute. It's the best damn day of the week. If you guys just showed up, I appreciate you. If you like it, like I'm going to do, let's like this stream here. If you don't like it, I have a good idea. Like this whole stream. It'll still be great. I mean, it won't hurt you at all. It'll be lovely. In fact, these stories will be up later on the channel as well. We do the party here, but the clips come up later. So come back and check those out and tell your friends, tell your family all about it. Let's move on to this next little bit here. As we've noticed, these ICE raids, these kidnappings, these detainments, these illegal torturous moves that these guys are all pulling off under the name of Tom Homan and Donald Trump, they've expanded to a couple of new states, Louisiana, Minnesota, and we've seen some of those motivations up in Minnesota. But did you guys see what was going on down in Louisiana, near New Orleans, of course? If you saw this scene in any other moment, in any other door cam, you'd go, somebody's got to go find those criminals that were chasing this young woman.
Leave me alone!
We don't even have the freedom no more to walk. I thought that she was going to get kidnapped, or something, or somebody was going to hurt her. So when I looked into my window, I saw a car stop in front of the house, another one, and I was like, oh, she's in trouble. So when I came to check on her, she was inside telling me, the ICE police, they don't want to leave me alone. So that's why I came outside and confront them. Hold on. I'm not exactly. We're all legal here. I mean, there is nothing bad here in this house. Nobody has a record. We never got in trouble. Actually, the neighborhood is full of family people, What are you looking for? This is a public area. Okay, what you want? I don't want to speak to you. Well, I don't want to talk to you either. You're the one talking to me. Get the phone here. You're leaving your Hispanic people. We have this feeling that it's not going to be the last time. I think it's a persecution. Why? Because now it doesn't matter if you have papers, if you speak English, or you're citizens. It's not enough.
Of course, it's not enough. That's their purpose. Their purpose is to harass people and chase certain folks down the street. So that young woman runs into the house. Her stepfather has to come out and scream and yell at these guys who cowardly jump back in their car and take off, when really they should be arrested. So if they would have gotten what they wanted, what would they have done with that woman? We've heard other accounts of what they've done with women and children and men that they've arrested, kidnapped, and tortured. Some of those folks are still missing. It's weird how, a criminal in the White House can start this whole process for claiming he's taking the worst of the worst off the streets, when instead he's chasing young women down the street, and before they're confronted by someone who tells them to get the hell out of here. The surprising part was they didn't pull out guns and say, we have the right to shoot you in your face, because they do that stuff too. So Greg Bovino is, of course, leading these operations. He's down in this particular video in Kenner, Louisiana. Of course, again, near New Orleans. And the folks came out to make sure that he didn't get done what he wanted to get done.
They cannot come in if you do not give that verbal allowed permission. Do not open your door. They need permission to enter your house unless they have a paper. They don't got papers. Let's go to patrol. By law, they cannot enter unless you open your door and give them permission. Anyway, U.S. Border Patrol.
I wonder if there's a bit more of a cautious approach that these guys are having. Those first folks ran away when the guy stepped out. As community members step out in the streets and start warning folks not to open their doors, and Greg Bovino's sorry ass right there walking away. I'm wondering if they're finally starting to feel a little bit of the pressure. People have guns in this country. Now they're running through southern cities where folks have been told their whole lives, all over the country, but there's a little bit more of a push in some of these other cities where they're like, if someone comes to your door and they're going to start snatching up your family members, it's about time to start taking matters into your own hands. Maybe they're beginning to realize that that's a clear and very easy possibility for them to run into. So they've stretched their forces both north and south up to also Minnesota. And we've heard a bit of their excuses for why they're attacking folks in Minnesota, but specifically a certain grouping of Americans in this country up in Minnesota. And they're represented many times by Representative Ilhan Omar here, who was on Face the Nation to talk about their motivations as they've stretched from Louisiana, and we've been in Memphis, I think they said, and now they're all up in Minneapolis, and their excuses are, just as racist as you could imagine.
I just wonder what the reaction is in your district to have that from the highest office in the land.
It's disgusting. It's completely disgusting. These are Americans that he is calling garbage. And we feel like there is an unhealthy obsession that he has on the Somali community, and an unhealthy and creepy obsession that he has with me. I think it is also really important for us to remember that this kind of hateful rhetoric and this level of dehumanizing can lead to dangerous actions by people who listen to the president.
I just wonder what the reaction.
And not just by random people who listen to the president, but by people who've been deputized by this president, who during his campaign said he's going to release all accountability for many officers, but apparently also ICE officials and Border Patrol agents to come and do whatever it is they want to any citizen that they want. You see a woman on the street, chase her down until she gets home and maybe get a chance, if you just missed, to do to her what they did to this Somali woman up in Minneapolis area. This woman was arrested while running an errand near the Nicollet Mall in downtown Minneapolis. Her cousin said that she was confronted by multiple federal agents who zip-tied her and brought her to the Sherburne County Jail in Elk River. He also said that the agents mocked her hijab and touched her inappropriately. The woman was released on Thursday after more than 24 hours in custody. She was let go after her husband showed authorities her passport card proving her citizenship. But the woman was too shaken up to speak publicly about it. Of course, it's a Somali woman who was arrested in this whole thing. Based on what? What is it you think they arrested this woman based off of? Then touched her inappropriately and made fun of her hijab, I believe is what they said they were upset about. Because, you know, these guys are on the up and up and they're law enforcement officials, not fucking racist. Here's a little bit more. Here's a quote from what they said. What could you be hiding under your hijab and stuff like that was what they said. And they even made a joke saying this would be the wrong attire to try and run away from us in. That's what one of the cousins' interaction with federal authorities, his quote about what he saw them say. He says, I feel upset. Obviously, it brings me a lot of anxiety and stress because this is my family and I call Minnesota home. He didn't want to give his name because his own immigration status as a documented immigrant from Somalia was something he was worried about them violating as well. I just want to connect these things. These piece of shit cowards chase young women down the street until they get to the house, and then a guy comes out, her stepfather comes out and screams at them, and suddenly, you know, they got to back away. But they were emboldened before because they attack women. In this particular case, up in Minneapolis, they attacked this Somali American woman, talk about her hijab, touch her inappropriately, keep her in prison for 24 hours until someone shows them papers. If nothing else, the folks who are now upset about this are beginning to be. You have to start acknowledging that way back, way before these policies were implemented, way back when they were putting in Tom Homan, way back when they were talking about Pete Hegseth, way back when they were talking about Patches Patel and Pam Bondi, putting them in all these positions of power, and Greg Bavino and them taking over and deputizing DC and LA and all this shit that they've been doing. As we've seen it go down, it's about time to start recognizing when folks were saying the Gestapo is here and they're going to be attacking people and assaulting them and checking for papers wrongfully and unconstitutionally, that we should have stopped them then. Because, you know, now you were just a part of making sure that we got here. It's about time to acknowledge a little bit of that. And speaking of Tom Homan, you know, that guy who keeps talking about the worst of the worst, and we're going to take the criminal terrorists off the streets and all that shit that he keeps always saying, when someone maybe should start asking him again, what happened to that $50,000 bribe that you took before you got into power, Tom? He probably answered as badly as he answered this question about Trump's racism and his attacks on Somali American citizens.
Mr. Homan, the president said very clearly this week that he doesn't want Somali immigrants in America. He called them garbage. Is that the real reason this operation is happening in the Somali community?
No, I think President Trump's referring to public safety threats as national security threats from Somalia and every other country.
Well, he didn't say that. He said
he's been clear from day one.
He talked about the whole community.
Well, look, I'm not aware what the President Trump was thinking when he said that, but I agree with President Trump. From day one, he has said, we are concentrating on public safety threats and national security threats. He was put in the Oval Office to run the biggest deportation operation this country's ever seen. That's exactly what we're doing. That's what American people voted for. So you know, there's numerous countries that President Trump's, you know, is looking at everybody that came up from these countries, make sure they're vetted properly. Some of these countries don't have the proper systems in place to totally vet somebody, so we don't know who they really are. So President Trump's taken upon himself in this administration to make sure anybody that came to this country illegally that we find, and those that came into a vetting process that weren't properly vetted, they don't have the database and information to ensure they're properly vetted, that we're going to relook at those cases and make sure they're properly vetted. So President Trump's doing the right thing, make sure everybody that came in legally came in through proper vetting, especially from countries that are related to terrorism or are somehow related to high numbers of
overstays or high number of criminal aliens in this country. That's what he's doing. He's protecting America, and I agree with 100% what he's doing, Dana.
The department.
And Dana Bash just moved on. Even though he didn't answer the question, when the question was, do you support this rabid racist rhetoric from your president, who now, after that rabid racist rhetoric, is sending you guys up into Minneapolis to attack American citizens? And then after attacking those American citizens, you just act like nothing ever happened. Instead, he goes on that long BS diatribe about how they're coming after the worst of the worst. It's like the same recited speech over and over again when we actually see what it is that they're doing. So, maybe, again, rather than invite him on to say all that and not get him to answer the question, how about you kick his ass off? Be like, well, Mr. Homan, you didn't answer the question, and it's apparent that you do agree with the rabid racism, which is why you guys are attacking certain communities up in Minneapolis. Get the fuck off the show. The mic operator will take it off for you. Get the fuck out of here. He's a liar. He's a liar, and he's avoided this. I didn't talk to the president about that. So maybe you should, unless you're in agreement with that. I gotta go. Tired of this. I had a whole extra story, but I started late, and I gotta do TDR in a second. How fast an hour goes by, but I was only late by like 2-3 minutes. I don't think that changed a lot of things. Maybe I could have run one more video of Marble Mouth here, Tom Homan talking and trying to evade things, but he never really gets that far either way. Every time you talk to Tom Homan, I just need a reporter to ask him, do you feel that you've completely skirted by your $50,000 bribe that we all know the Department of Justice has been hiding ever since, along with the Epstein files? Do you feel clear and comfortable again to come back on TV and expect no one to ask you about the bribes that you've been taking? Sorry, some bitch. Let's go out. We'll see you guys in a few minutes over on TDR. But again, these stories will be up there later. As we're on our way out, go ahead and like and subscribe this whole channel if you haven't done that yet. Go ahead and let folks know what it is that we're doing. I appreciate you guys being here. The Mondays is flying by. I got a whole extra hour and a half over on John's show to do a little bit more of the same things. Let's see what we're talking about over there. I'll see you guys over there in a few more minutes. Until later. See you later, man.